What's up guys, Max here, back with some impressions of a game that I didn't get too much of an opportunity to talk about from E3, but did just recently. When we were at the show, the lines for everything was extremely long, and the one that I definitely wanted to play before the show was over was Dissidia NT. However, the line at the show for the game was so long that we were there for like an hour, we only got one match of the game, and I really didn't get an opportunity to give so much of my impressions because it was over so damn fast. However, somebody at the show that worked at Square Enix recognized me, and lucky enough, they brought me over to their offices to fire up the E3 build of Dissidia NT, and I get to talk to you guys about it. So here we go. The last time I played a Dissidia game was Duodecim. Being on the PSP, I'm not a huge fan of handheld gaming, so I really never had the opportunity to learn how to play the Dissidia games. Until the end of 2015, I made a video about the game, streamed it a little bit, and had a whole bunch of time to actually play it in front of people as they taught me how Dissidia actually works, with the Brave attacks, HP attacks, everything like that. And it took me quite a bit to understand how the game essentially functions, because it's a lot different than a traditional fighter, and it is essentially an arena fighting game. Giant 3D arenas, one-on-one character combat. That was how the previous Dissidia games are, and this one is quite different, simply because the game has changed to a 3 versus 3 format. There's always crazy stuff happening at every turn. You have team mechanics that you use to help out your team and specific attacks like that. It definitely changes from whatever feel the game kind of had in the previous ones, because now there is something happening at all times in any direction, and you really have to keep an eye out. Speaking on that, in terms of the size of the game, the stages themselves are pretty big. All things considered, this is now a 3 versus 3 game, while the previous ones were 1 versus 1. But in the 1v1 games, I remember the majority of stages being absolutely gigantic in Duodecim, and in many situations it was just a lot of pursuing the opponent. But there are smaller stages in the previous game, and I do remember those. The nice thing is that there's a kind of a comfortable middle ground in Dissidia NT where you're fighting the opponents and there's never so much space between each other because of all that action that's happening. Quickly talking about the controls and everything that I was able to get familiar with to the demo of this game, the basics kind of go, you have a jump, you have a regular attack, which is known as Brave attacks, you have an HP attack, which depletes the Brave gauge and does damage, and then you also have these secondary kind of EX attacks, which are somewhat similar to assisting team moves. For example, some of them are Recover HP, some of them are like Poison Ga and things like that. They more benefit the team and are status ailments instead of things that directly physically strike the opponent. But the composure and the mechanics of the previous Dissidia games are kind of there. You essentially whack on your opponent with the X attack, or the X button, which does Brave damage. The Brave damage builds up at the bottom that you see, and that Brave meter starts growing and growing and growing the more damage that you do. And as soon as it's really high, if you do an HP attack, at any point if you land an HP attack, that HP attack will remove that Brave damage from your opponent, which is essentially their life. So it's kind of like you build up a bunch of damage and then you cash it out with an HP attack. Now, speaking about those attacks directly, the main character I used was Cloud throughout the time I was spending with this game. I did play a few other characters, but I kind of was understanding how the heck Cloud works and what he does. And he did feel a bit different from the previous Dissidia games, but at the same time, the one thing I can tell you is that this game has sets. Like, each character gets a combat set that decides what their HP attack is, what their EX kind of attacks are, their triangle attacks. So I'm fairly sure that the majority of characters are going to have a variety of HP attacks. Right now, Cloud only had Meteor Rain as well as Cross Slash, and Meteor Rain was a very long distance sort of attack, while Cross Slash obviously is like the rushing in physical kind of attack. It was nice to see that there is a difference between the two, but I definitely want to see more, and I know that there is a lot more in the previous games. There was no way to trigger Omni Slash or something like that I might remember from something like Duodecim, but I wouldn't be surprised, and hopefully when the game does eventually come out in 2018, that there will be a lot more HP attacks of some kind. Speaking of the Brave attacks, the ones that actually build up the Brave bar, these are very similar to like limit breaks. They all resemble a limit break with Cloud of some kind. I know I don't have a lot of footage of Cloud because I wasn't able to direct capture. The Square guys were nice enough to give me some really high quality footage, but I will hopefully throw in some stuff from Cloud's trailer, which did show a lot of this stuff off. On those Brave attacks, he specifically had Cling Hazard, he had Blade Beam, as well as Finishing Touch. Finishing Touch kind of acted like Cloud's base projectile. You can jump up and throw the attack and have it go in certain directions. If you pressed side as well as an attack button, he would do Blade Beam. And I think if you press like forward or back with the attack button, it would do Clim Hazard, and it acted very much like a Dante Stinger type of thing because he would rush forward across a huge portion of the screen. However, with all these attacks, and I'm not too sure if this was the same with other characters because I played like Tidus and I played a little bit of Squall and I didn't really notice this, he can charge them 3 levels. So there's a basic one, there's a level 2, and there's a level 3. So the more you charged it, like the further he would go with Clim Hazard, the longer the direction that Blade Beam would actually travel, and the more of a giant whirlwind tornado would show up if you used Finishing Touch. And I thought that was kind of cool. There are actually combos in the game technically too, because at any situation, if you use your regular like attacks without a direction, your character does a basic combo that will launch the opposition to any specific direction, and you could press the R1 button, I believe, to kind of dash in and run after them, the pursuit button. And if they end up hitting a wall, they go into a very long extended wall splat state, meaning that if you got a little bit of damage from that combo, or like 1,000 to 1,500 brave damage from that combo, they'll slap into a wall for a very extended period of time, and then you want to pull off your HP attack. So with Cloud, it was either Cross Slash or Meteor Rain, so you can combo into your HP attack to start lowering their life bar. Other than that, talking about like base mechanics, there is the pursuit button, like I said, that allows you to essentially fly around the stage. You can't do this forever. There is a bar that limits the amount of like air dashing you're allowed to do. Characters have multiple jumps in the air, and you're able to run up walls and trees and everything like that. I believe the command was go to any direction and you press jump. So if you hold down R1 and press like circle, I think, towards a wall, your character will run up the wall. It actually looks really cool. And I think you can do some acrobatic stuff off that as well. A lot of the attacks do change in the air too, like one of Cloud's, I think Clim Hazard actually changed to a downward strike, which goes straight down to the ground, like Virgil style and Dante style in Marvel vs. Capcom. And of course, the big new thing to the game is summons. Summons essentially are a way of changing the tide of battle. There's a crystal that shows up on screen. You dash towards the crystal, you start beating it up, and your team can start powering up for it by pressing the touchpad. And the more your team is powering up, for example, if you see someone summoning it on your team, you'll see a bar that starts showing up very slowly. You can assist the team member by charging up yourself, which will leave you vulnerable, but will get the summon on the screen faster, so there's a little bit of team coordination in that vein too. Other characters aren't just physical attackers. There are Ishtola and I believe Shantoto from Final Fantasy XI and Final Fantasy XIV that are mage-type characters, like whether or not they're black mage characters or they cast holy or they have healing attacks. There will definitely be team composition stuff when people are going to be playing the game. But in terms of playing the game, the only way we were able to play it was over like actual consoles that are connected, so we didn't get a full 6-person 3 versus 3 match. It was just one versus the other, like one console versus another console. So that's going to be a big part of the game, which is most likely going to have online functions, even though they're not really talking about that at this time. That about covers the mechanics and everything that I was able to experience with a little bit of time I had with the game. The core roster itself was not finished. There are several characters that were in trailers, like Sephiroth and Ramza, and many others that were not in the game right now, and they essentially have one representative from every Final Fantasy in the title as of right now. So there's much more to come in terms of characters and character selection from what I understand, but at the same time, I really want to play Ramza. I'm kind of curious to see what his playstyle is going to be like, if he has a job system thing of some kind, as well as also seeing that damn extra costume, like his knight costume when he kind of grows up in the game. I really love that one, and I can't wait to see what Ramza plays like. I'll say right now, one of the most impressive things about Dissidia NT was definitely the graphics. Team Ninja absolutely has been killing it lately in terms of graphical fidelity in their games. Not only with the Dead or Alive series, which does look fantastic, that game is actually rather old right now. You look at games like Neo and you look at games like Dissidia, they are freaking gorgeous with all the effects and the summons and all this insane stuff happening. I really didn't notice any frame drops specifically when we were playing, which was pretty reassuring considering the version of the game we were playing was very early and just a build with only the characters and a versus mode, and that's it. The other thing I wanted to mention that I'm definitely hoping for is I want the characters to be able to do more stuff. Like I said earlier, you can set things to characters where their HP attack is a certain thing, like Cloud's being Meteor Rain or Clim Hazard. You can set their EX moves, which are team assisting attacks. There's like 4 slots of things you can set per character, and right now we could not change what those things are specifically. So I very much want to see the ability to give characters more moves, more HP attacks, potentially even more and interesting and different versions of Brave attacks as well would be fantastic. Simply because I want to have more stuff that I can do with my character and more cool stuff that you can show off. Last but not least, it was very reassuring that the Square Enix development team, when we were playing the game, were actively looking for criticism and things that we were looking forward to the game and stuff that we think would be awesome, and they were taking notes on all of it. The one thing that I definitely would like to see show up in Dissidia at some point before the game's eventual release is something that doesn't specifically utilize a only 3 versus 3 environment. I feel a lot of people that are from the previous Dissidia games or fans of kind of one-on-one fighting and don't want to have to deal with the 3 and 3 and crazy chaos all over the place, even though I kind of really like that, probably just want to do I just want to fight you so we can see who is as good with Squall versus Cloud or something like that. I would personally love to set up an awesome fight with just Cloud versus Sephiroth on the Midgar stage, set some awesome music to it, and see how crazy that fight could possibly be. I really, really hope that there is eventually at some point in this game a 1 versus 1 type of mode where we just don't have to do the 3 versus 3, because it is the stuff you can do in Duodecim I found to be insanely fun when I was playing that game for a limited period of time a couple years ago. And they were very open and receptive about that stuff, but they did say that the game was inherently designed for 3 versus 3, that is the big key focus of the game, so I'm not too sure if it'll go anywhere, but I'm just kind of curious if anyone else is excited for something like a 1 versus 1 mode of some kind, even though 3 versus 3 is the big focus of the game. Either way, that's all I got from Dissidia right now. There will actually be more opportunities to play the game at EVO, which they will be at, and we might even have a small event where we gather up as a team and play you guys as teams. They did mention that it might be a possibility if they have availability at the show floor, which would be pretty damn cool. Either way, if there's any more Dissidia news and information or characters that I've been looking forward to, similar to the previous reaction videos and me talking about the game, I'll be back to update you dudes as soon as possible, and hopefully, just hopefully, if some more characters come online within the different builds and versions that the Square Enix guys have, just maybe I can come back and show you dudes how awesome characters like Sephiroth or Ramza, or potentially any others that you dudes are excited for. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see what is possible, because the Square Enix guys were pretty damn awesome, and they seemed pretty jazzed about having a fighting game returning to the Square Enix library after like 5 years since the last one. As always, dudes, thank you a ton for watching. I'll be back with more updates as soon as possible to Dissidia NT. My name is Max, and I'll see you next time.